Order M43, third reading of Bill 43, an act to proclaim PANDAS Awareness Day. Mr. Bailey.
Okay. The member from Sarnia Lambert.
Madam Speaker, I move third reading of Bill 43, an act to proclaim PANDAS Awareness Day.
Mr. Bailey has moved third reading of Bill 43, an act to proclaim PANDAS Awareness Day. The member from Sarnia Lambert.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm very happy that we're all here today to discuss Bill 43, the PANDAS Awareness Day Act. I only have a few minutes to discuss Bill 43, and that's okay, because the PANDAS Awareness Day is a very straightforward bill, but it's about a very important subject, Madam Speaker. If passed later today, October 9th, and each year will officially be recognized as PANDAS Awareness Day in Ontario. I will get into that, why that's so important, in just a few minutes, but first I want to draw everyone's attention to the members' West Gallery, and I would like to introduce Carrie Henriksen, Lena Henriksen, Aaron Warchick, and Ellen Nickel, who are joining us here today. And other people that wanted to attend but couldn't today because of business and travel: Leslie Best, Beverly Montague, Brandon Montague, and Jasmine Montague. And I also want to pay particular attention to my legislative assistant, Anthony Rosetta, who worked with these people to help and these mothers and parents to draft this bill. So those are some of the people who make up the PANDAS Ontario network, Madam Speaker. They have all faced the challenge of dealing with the symptom of PANDAS either personally or in caring for a loved one. Please join me in welcoming them to Queen's Park. PANDAS, which stands for Pediatric Autoimmune Neuropsychiatric Disorders Associated with Streptococcus, is quite a mouthful. It describes a subset of children or adolescents who have either had an abrupt onset of obsessive-compulsive disorder or a tic disorder, symptoms, or an acute worsening of symptoms following a Streptococcus infection. PANS, which is the other part of the title, stands for Pediatric Acute Onset Neuropsychiatric Syndrome, and it describes the sudden acute onset of any neuropsychiatric conditions. For example, OCD, anxiety, depression, irritability, or regression that cannot be explained by any other neurological or medical disorder. That is a lot to take in, so let me simplify it just a bit. Children and adolescents are infected with the strep virus, which we all know is very common. In fact, a member of my staff was just off a few weeks ago for 3 days as the strep virus went through his household, infecting all 5 people, including the 3 young children. However, after the strep infection has run its course, some parents are noticing that their children are acting differently. They're showing behaviors and traits that they didn't have before the strep infection was present. Things like obsessive-compulsive behavior, generalized anxiety, joint pain, restrictive eating, tics, separation anxiety, hyperactivity, sleeping difficulties, and regression in language and their behavior. This is obviously very concerning for any parent. So parents are going to their doctors and pediatricians, Madam Speaker, and asking for help. But because awareness and understanding of the PANDAS symptom has not permeated the mainstream thinking of the medical community, the symptoms that these children are displaying are often being confused with other conditions. As a result, these children are potentially being misdiagnosed, and they end up taking medication to deal with their symptoms, but the root of the problem is never being addressed. Of course, no parent wants to see their child medicated needlessly, and that is why it is so important to raise the awareness of PANS as a possible diagnosis in these situations. I know any parent is going to say that they want to know that everything is being considered when it comes to the health of their child. Once diagnosed, treatment of PANS may be as simple as antibiotics or an anti-inflammatory medication, and the impact on the child can be seen almost overnight. This is important stuff and potentially life-changing for those affected. Before my time is up, I want to mention that the major driver behind this bill, PANDAS Ontario, and an organization that was started in my riding by Carrie Henriksen, who I introduced earlier. Carrie saw these dramatic changes in her children and knew something wasn't right. So she started asking those questions, Madam Speaker, and making those phone calls and organizing people around the province. And now, with the help of Aaron and Ellen and many others, they are doing a lot of great work, getting the word out about PANDAS. I hope that members from each party will take a few moments to say hello to Carrie and the other visitors from the PANDAS Ontario to learn more about their personal stories. If and when Bill 43 is passed today, Ontario will join dozens of states in the U.S. and one other province in Canada, recognizing October 9th as Panda PANS Awareness Day. I think it is the right thing for the members of this legislature to do, and I ask for your support on Bill 43. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Further debate. Further debate. Further debate. Further debate. I recognize the Minister of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, I'm happy to speak to Bill 43, an act to proclaim PANS Awareness Day, brought by the member opposite. I want to speak to the awareness issue because until this bill was brought to my attention some days ago, frankly, I hadn't given PAN issue a lot of thought. In fact, I was one of those people who was, in effect, unaware of it. And so when I did my research and looked into it and read the materials over that you so graciously provided, I thought of a number of possible scenarios of children of friends of mine who may, in fact, fit the diagnosis. I didn't know about it. So for me, it's been an exercise in awareness, and that's the intent behind your bill, to make people like me and others and members of the general public. But also it's the physicians. The syndrome is so rare that, in fact, as I understand it from my reading, it's a difficult diagnosis to make. It's confused with other issues. And in fact, with all due respect to the medical community, there, in fact, are physicians who often miss the diagnosis. And why? It's because they have the same issue of awareness that the layperson does. So I compliment the member for bringing this forward. In fact, all too often, children with PANS and PANDAS are misdiagnosed as having a psychiatric illness and may be treated solely with psychotropic drugs to manage their symptoms. And you know, there's nothing worse if you have a medical condition to be treated with the wrong medication, because that leads to a whole host of new issues without correcting the original issue that your physician was trying to deal with. Unfortunately for PANS and PANDAS patients, this does not, if it's treated as a psychiatric disorder, address the root cause of the symptoms. The root causes of the symptoms are physical. It's an infection-triggered autoimmune condition. And in fact, studies have shown that when given the appropriate anti-infective or immunological treatment, PANS and PANDAS patients experience symptom resolution. Symptom resolution because they've had A, the right diagnosis, and B, the right prescription of medicines to deal with the symptom. The symptoms then, if they're recognized and receive the right medication, chemical medication, are reduced dramatically. So we're back to this piece of the awareness, obtaining the correct diagnosis, getting the correct diagnosis. It's obviously an issue in the lay community, and it can be an issue, in fact, in the professional medical community. And that's because the symptoms of PANDAS PAN mimic many other symptoms, typically the symptoms revolving around psychological and psychiatric issues. So, again, I thank the member for bringing this bill forward. In fact, I passed on your information to some friends of mine and said you may be interested in this because I know they were struggling with a child and they weren't sure which way to turn. We can't say how many kids with psychiatric symptoms have underlying immune or inflammatory components to their disorder. That's what Dr. Chang, a professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences at none other than Stanford University Medical School. That's one of the top medical schools in North America. And if he's of that opinion, that at a medical school like that, they have trouble making the diagnosis, what does that say for the academic medical community across the country, across North America? But given the new research indicating that inflammation drives mood disorders and other psychiatric problems, it is likely, according to Dr. Chang, to be a large subset, the symptoms, be a large subset of children and adults that are diagnosed with psychiatric disorders. So once again, I want to thank the member for coming up with this awareness bill. I think of all of the awareness debates that we've had in this chamber, that this is probably one of the most remote, but one of the most useful.
Thank you. Thank you. Further debate. Further debate. Further debate. Okay. Mr. Bailey has moved third reading of Bill 43, an act to proclaim PANDAS, Pans Awareness Day. Is this the pleasure of the House? The motion carry. Carry. I hear carry.
Third reading of the bill, troisième lecture, projet de loi.
Be it resolved that the bill do now pass and be entitled as in the motion. Thank you.